While the September 2022 CreateAlong Box is themed peace and love and groovy stuff, I decided to go in a completely different direction and make a Christmas ornament. Hey there, Sandy Huntress here for CreateAlong. Join me in getting a head start on the holidays. This little piece dove was one of the cutters in your September 2022 box, and I thought it would be cute to make a Christmas ornament. What you'll need are 2 sheets of clay. I'm using pearl here, and they need to be 2 different thicknesses for the different uses. So the one that you're going to use for your main part, the front part of your ornament, needs to be thick enough so that you can press on the back and not break through it. The one that's going to be the backing needs to be thinner so that your ornament won't be weirdly thick. You'll see what I mean as we progress. So this one's rolled out on a number 2 on my atlas, which is about 2 millimeters thick. This one's rolled out on a number 5 on my atlas, which is maybe just under 1.5 millimeters thick. So I'm just going to lay this on the cutter and flip it over, and you'll need a ball tool. This one's a little more than 1/8 of an inch. And what you want to do is kind of press lightly with your fingers. The newer CreateAlong cutters are nice and sharp, so be careful. You don't want to cut through at this point, not yet. You just want to use your fingers and find the edges of your shape. And then start going in with the ball tool. You really don't need to rub the middle. You can a little, but it will mostly take care of itself. Just rub with the ball tool along those edges gently. Do it gradually. We're stretching the clay. I don't know how well you can see, but that's getting rounded. But if you press too hard, too fast, you're just going to rip it, and then you'll need to start again. And you may need some practice knowing how hard to press, and that's okay. Just roll it up in a ball and start again. So I'm going to go a little further here. And yeah, maybe go a little bit in the center. You do too much in the center, that's where you can really risk ripping it. I'm really trying to find those edges. Now we're going to press it onto this thinner sheet. It's really helpful here to have an acrylic block so that you can make sure you get all the way down to your tile. I like working on ceramic tiles. Make sure it's got good contact so it's cut all the way through. And then we'll just cut this away from the outside. Leave your cutter in place and peel away the excess clay. Remove that cutter. You can see what I mean here. If I had made that bottom layer thicker, this would have been really thick. Now we can add just a couple details. You've got a pocket of air in here. You actually could cut a hole out of this and have it puffy around the middle. But just be gentle. And I'll use my ball tool, the smaller end, and give my dove an eye. And there, that is ready to bake. Next we'll make some sparkly berries. I've just rolled about a 1/4 inch log of clay. The same pearl, you could try using different colors, and I'm going to cut it into about 1/4 inch pieces, which will yield 1/4 inch balls. Roll these all into smooth balls. And next we're going to put them on some wire. If you have an idea what you're going to do with your project, you can choose a color of wire that will work. I have this green, which looks nice for stems, and it's 26 gauge, something that's kind of a fine gauge. You could probably go 24 gauge. And you want to cut 1.5 to 2 inch pieces. Again, it's helpful to have a plan and know what you're going to do with it. And for every one of your pieces, use a pair of pliers, chain nose or round nose, and just make a loop in that end. Here's a bunch I made already. Now you just pick up each of your balls and stuff one of those loops into the ball. Try not to distort it too much, but as long as it's still a generally round shape, it will work just fine. So continue to make the beginning of as many berries as you want. For this next step, you'll want to have a few things ready. First of all, you'll want to pour a little bit of liquid clay into a bowl. And you'll also want to pour some of the glitter that came in your box into a bowl. And finally, on the tile where you have your ornament, you just want a sacrificial scrap of clay. This is going to be a stand for our wires, so make it at least 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch thick, just a scrap. I'm only doing a few wires here. If I was doing more, I'd use a bigger scrap. You want to tilt your bowl, especially if it's a kind of a wide, shallow bowl like this one, so you have a puddle of the liquid clay. Then you'll just dip your ball on the wire into it, and be sure to let as much of the excess clay drip off, because if you don't, it's going to drip anyways and it'll make it weirdly shaped. To get it nice and round, let as much drip off as you can. Then we'll come over here and just roll it in that glitter. And there you have a glittery berry. And you can stick that into your sacrificial bit of clay and carry on making as many of these as you want. Now see, that one I didn't let drip, and so it's dripping. It's making a mess. So I'm just going to kind of shape it on the tile. You can shape it a little with your fingers. There's no tidy way to work with glitter. It's just going to be messy. There we go. Whoops. That does happen sometimes. If it does, just get another ball of clay, kind of scoop that one out. You can try reusing it, but it's so sticky, I wouldn't bother. Then you bake all of your berries and your bird at the manufacturer's recommended temperature for about 45 minutes. Here are our pieces out of the oven. The wire just pops out, and you can just throw out this scrap clay. It's done its job. And this will just pop right up off the tile. Now you may find, because of the way we baked it on the tile, that the edges are a little rough. And just some fine grit, like 400 grit sandpaper, will knock off that edge. There are a couple ways you can use this. This is a really cute little 2.5 inch grapevine wreath that I found at the craft store. And all I did was added some ribbon around it with a little bit of hot glue. And also some of this stuff. This is wired greenery. I actually found this in the bridal section, the his and hers bridal section at Hobby Lobby. So some kind of greenery, even if you had little pine boughs or something, you can wrap around the wreath, make a bow, and then just hot glue on your bird. For clusters of berries, just group them together. I like to offset them and hold it with some pliers and start twisting. That's all, till they're all held together just the way you want. To tuck these into the wreath, I just cut it down. These ones aren't even glued in the wreath. I'll show you on the back here. I don't really need another cluster. But what you can do is come in with an awl and open out that wreath, and then just tuck these in. And then when it closes up, it's in there, and that little bit of extra wire you can just wrap someplace unobtrusive, and there, it's in there. Isn't that the sweetest thing? To make it into just a free hanging ornament, you can roll some clay on like a medium setting. I think this is a number 4, which is just over 1 millimeter. And you can add a texture. This is a texture sheet that I designed, so I kind of like it. After you've added your texture, flip it over. Use the cutter to cut out the shape. Add liquid clay to the back of the baked piece. And you can take your time and make that fit nicely. You might need to trim away some of the excess to make it just right. And before you bake it, just grab a little screw eye, like one of these, and tuck it in to the unbaked clay. Then you can add a hanger. And after baking, you can glue on a little branch. You'll want to use a little bit of floral tape to cover those wire ends. And then you can glue that to the back, and you have a really sweet Christmas ornament. however you decide to use it. Once again, this is Sandy Huntress for CreateAlong, wishing you happy creating.